But before we do, I would like each of you to introduce yourself and say your age and what you're doing right now.
Na hoa tire ga ka hera hapo winge okio winge kokio winge. My name is David Naranjo. My native name is Hummingbird. I'm from the pueblos of Santa Clara, San Juan, and Cochiti. And right now, I'm currently a student at UNM as a freshman.
Na poshare ga kawe. My name is Marissa. I'm from Santa Clara Pueblo, and I'm a junior studying sociology at UNM.
No, my name is White Rain, or Jeremy, and I'm a freshman over at UNM studying environmental science.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice that you're going on with your education. Are you doing anything special in terms of your studies, your minor, major, that relates to language or school or anything really?
I'm majoring in sociology with a minor in Native American studies, and right now I'm focusing on an essay. I try to incorporate Native American studies as much as I can into my major, and I'm focusing on an essay right now that has to do with Native American language networks in New Mexico for the Pueblos and how those are formed and maintained.
During the summer, I was in a program and I took Native American Studies classes, and I wrote my paper on my experience on learning my language, and I talked about that it's helped me know who I am through this program, and and I was able to present that during over the summer.
Well, currently I'm not taking any classes on Native American Studies or anything like these two great folks over here. But I do plan on taking some Native American study classes along with some linguistic classes, because the language, like we've shown and talked about, is pretty important. So I will probably be taking those classes.
Do you have any ambitions along the lines of things you might have learned while you were doing the film?
The film taught us so much. We had no idea it was going to come out to be that great, and there would be so many people that were supporting us afterwards, but it really helped me to realize how much we're supported and how important this initiative is for us to learn our language as Native youth. So I want to take that and incorporate it into my education, maybe in the future to become a language director or some kind of language teacher for my pueblo.
Yeah, I was asking if you had any further ambition that might have come out of the film when you were doing it, or anything you're pursuing as a result of that event.
Right now I'm just trying to speak the language more often. Since I'm away from home, it's kind of hard to communicate back with my family, but during the weekends I go back and I try to talk as much as I can during that period. But yeah, like I'm speaking to my grandparent, I'm speaking to my little cousins in Tewa, trying to have them speak back, and they understand, and so yeah.
I'd have to say that my ambitions haven't lessened at all throughout this whole process. I mean, if anything, I've only become more ambitious. Like David was saying, I'm further away from home, and it is harder to communicate with elders and fluent speakers because of that distance. But any chance that I get, I try to make sure that I learn something. If it's not of the language, it's of the culture, and just communicating to people is definitely an aspect that I like to look forward to, and reconnecting with family and friends.
Good. Thank you for that. What did you like about taking the lead in language learning from where you started to as you went through the process of doing this film?
Sorry, can you repeat it? That was a little
Yeah, what were the things that you liked or maybe inspired you about taking the lead in just doing language learning through, as a result of doing this film?
I mean, like, I can't overstress how powerful it was to receive the support that we did from our family and our friends and anybody that was willing to just, like, lend a helping hand to us. I think that really, in the beginning, I was just learning my language because I knew that it was important. I mean, but as time went on, we really felt the support from our family, and so it kind of guided and pushed us to know that we need to take this into our own hands and we need to keep learning, and not just for ourselves, but for our community and the future generations that are coming after us. We realized that through this film and through the people that have helped us, that the language doesn't just belong to us as individuals, it belongs to our entire communities, and we have to make sure that it keeps going strong till the end of time.
Yeah, when I was young, I felt socially disconnected from Santa Clara Pueblo. That's where I actively participate in our ceremonial doings. And when I would participate, I wasn't able to understand what they were saying. I was just basically looking at them, staring, wondering like what they were saying. And I really wanted to learn the language, and it's through this program where I kind of took it seriously. I took that initiative to learn the language because I wanted to, and not because somebody else wanted us to. I just wanted to learn the language.
Well, I guess my story is the reason why I took up this pilot program was because Marissa had asked me if I was interested in learning it, and so next thing you know, I said yes, and I'm starting to go to meetings, and everything's starting to get bigger and bigger. And the whole reason I said yes was because there aren't very many people around me that can speak the language. And I saw that, and I realized that I needed to do something about it, and I didn't really have any way to learn because I didn't know who spoke the language. I didn't know who I could talk to. So the first available opportunity that came up, which Marissa had offered me through this pilot program, I took. And I'm glad I did take it because now I have so many different connections and I have so many different people that I can talk to about the language and just learn the language. And I feel like this program has allowed me to grow in so many different ways, not only through the language, but to help my community, because I am, like I said, the next step, just as Marissa and David are. And it's just up to us to keep this language strong, and I saw that, and I took the opportunity.
Were there areas of the language or living that you wanted to know about, certain kinds of expressions or things that you were particularly interested in how to say it, as well as who to go to learn how to say those things?
Yeah, I think that when we started the pilot program, we got a folder with all of these smaller lesson plans in them. And one of the strengths of the pilot program was that it allowed the program itself to be flexible, and so that we could take that structure that they gave us and make it our own. And one of the ways that we did that is we asked about words that we could be using during meal times, because we all know that it's a really important time of day for our families to gather and talk to each other. And so we asked, like, how do you say, pass me the salt, pass me this, how was your day? And so the curriculum, the structure of the program allowed us to incorporate what we wanted to learn into our language program. And so I think that was really great.
Like my sister was saying, we had to actually go out and ask certain individuals, like our family, to teach us these words. And our instructor, Ms. J, taught us how do you say in our Tewa language. And so like how you say that was like hanum tu, and then you say whatever in English, and they would say it back in Tewa, and so you'd be like, okay, I know this word. And so that's been I'm still using that, and seems to be going pretty well.
I think another thing with the curriculum is just everyday use, because I don't know, what limits me to speaking my language is not being able to talk every day, not allowing the opportunity for Tewa to be spoken. So, I mean, we're talking English right now, but if I knew how to speak in the language, it would open the door for our language to be spoken at that moment. It would give us an excuse to use our language, and which is a shame because we shouldn't need an excuse, but just having that ability to use everyday phrases really helped me out. So just like, how are you doing? Hey, can you pass me this? Like, just little things like that. And people will understand and respond to you, and hopefully they'll respond back with the language, and then from that you can build and learn from it.
Were you able to notice your ability to speak compared to maybe your contemporaries who weren't in the program, maybe relatives or something like that?
I know me and Dave have a lot of cousins, and a lot of them are our age or a little bit older, a little bit younger. And once we got into this program, we really noticed a difference I really noticed a difference in how much we were speaking compared to our cousins, younger and older, to our grandparents. And so I knew that the difference was because of the language program that we had been immersed into, and the support that our family gave us after we started speaking to them. And I think it's really encouraging our cousins, little ones and a little bit older than us, to start speaking too.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard at first to learning the language because some of our family members, again, were saying, like, you should already know it. And, like, that kind of put us down one level. And then there's other relatives that are, like, really encouraging us to learn the language, and so that really brought us back up. But, yeah, now that I kind of agree with my sister, I think we're speaking a lot more than from what we began with. And then teaching our younger cousins and older cousins if they want to ask us. But I mean, we'll teach whoever of what we know now. But I hope, we're going to learn more so we can maybe help each other out in this process as well.
So from this whole process, what I've learned is what David and Marissa have said is their elders usually put them down with just like small little remarks saying that you should know the language and you should know this. And while learning Tewa, I learned that I shouldn't put my family down because I'm learning. I should encourage them. And so I did that. With my cousins, I would talk to them in Tewa. I would just encourage them to learn it. I would just say words that I knew. And they'd ask me, like, what is that? What is that? And I'd tell them, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. And then they forget it. But then I'd say it again later. And so, like, just encouraging them like that. And it really has helped because, like, my little cousin, he started doing the follow-up program at the school that we had gone to. And, like, I don't know, it just made me really proud to see that I helped encourage him and push him to learn the language just through my small remarks that I gave him and my small little bits of knowledge that I had put on him. And I do that with my whole family. Like my dad, if he wants to know a word, I help him out. My uncle, my older cousins, my younger cousins, pretty much anyone around me, I try to make sure that I help and encourage them to learn the language because it is something important.
You've kind of already answered this, but I'd like you to kind of expound a little bit more. It's been a couple years since this pilot project was concluded, and how are you doing with the language learning now? I mean, I know you said you're far away from the community, and you've heard some of these people talk about using cultural media and things like that to be able to talk. Do you speak amongst yourselves when you can? That kind of thing.
I mean, with everything going on in our little worlds today, all the schedules we have to meet and all the deadlines we have to meet, and going to classes and everything, it's really hard to keep up with our language, but we know that it's really important. And one of our biggest assets as youth is our technology that we use. Just recently, my mom's been sending us Tewa words of the day through text, and she'd send like an audio file as well as like the written part, and that's really helped. I mean, I've learned a lot of new phrases just through that small effort, and I know that Jeremy and David and our other brother, Jordan, they're learning too in that small way. But yeah, we're still doing everything that we can to keep the language alive in our daily lives, and that means like just thinking of it throughout our day and reminding ourselves how to say different words, and then going home on the weekends like we usually do and greeting our grandma or grandpas in our language and talking to them, doing the most we can, asking them questions in our language. And so yeah, we try and keep up like that.
Yeah, it's definitely hard now that we're in school, but like as I said before, like we go back on weekends and we try and communicate to our little cousins, our cousins, our grandmother, and so far it seems to go pretty well. And whenever me and Jeremy hang out, we have pretty deep conversations too. And so yeah, just that support and talking amongst one another, it really helps.
Yeah, I think they said it all. Just through technology, and even like me and David aren't fluent, but the words we do know, we still talk to each other and reinforce one another. And like we try to figure out our own language between us. Be like, does it mean this? It's like, well, yeah, kind of. Like I remember hearing it like this, or I remember hearing it like that. So it definitely does help just having anyone around, you know. And definitely with the small little text and audios that I get, that's how I'm keeping up with it. And going back home definitely helps on weekends.
Do you have a message for other kids? I mean, it's kind of hard, you know, not in a preaching sense, but in an encouraging sense of why you do this, and not just to show off, but if there's a sense of knowledge and something there to help you understand the world and the things you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I started out the program, like I said before, I was starting it out because I knew that language was like, in my mind, it was kind of important, and my heritage was pretty important to who I was. But that was when I was in like middle school, going into high school, and barely starting this development of learning my language. And I would say that to younger people that are just starting to embark on learning their language, to really, really realize the importance that it has not only to you but to your community. And that importance for the younger people comes from their elders and comes from their parents, anybody, to tell them, like, you guys need to learn your language, you need to realize that it's really important to us and to you. And then so the next step after realizing that it's really important is to keep learning the language and to not be scared to speak it. Because I know that all of us have gone through that stage of like, we're kind of afraid to speak it in front of our family. We're pretty afraid to speak it. I mean, but just not being afraid, I think, is what's going to help the growth of the language as individuals.
What really bugged me about not knowing my language was that, I didn't know what our tribal elders were saying whenever I participated in in our traditional ceremonies. And I knew it was meaningful. It just had so much strength behind it, and just that fact that I didn't know made me want to learn it. And so I really, really wanted to learn the language, and so this program really helped a lot. And we're all helping each other along.
Well, I guess what I would tell the younger generations is to just try and realize the importance of our language. I know it just seems like something that we do only on our feast days and stuff, but in reality, it's who we are. And I know that's really hard for a 7-year-old to grasp, but if they can just slightly wrap their head around it, then they're already on the first step. And then after that, what I've got to say is to the elders is encourage them, keep that fire going, give them the knowledge, give them an opportunity to learn. I mean, I didn't have that opportunity, and I feel really broken inside because I didn't have that opportunity. No one had the ability to keep that fire inside me going, and once I had the opportunity, I just didn't want to stop. So I think for the younger generation, it's definitely important that they find the importance and the value of our language. And for the older generation, just encourage them, give them those words, allow them to have the ability to learn.
Well, now that you've been out of it for a couple of years and you're going to school and you're ambitious and you're articulate and you're obviously very intelligent, how would you envision the future a little bit, maybe in 5 years, as far as language learning, community language, and especially people maybe trying to use these model of the taught course that you went on, where you it was a designer language program for you. How would you see that projected in the future?
Well, like I said before, to the youth, I mean, any youth nowadays, technology is like their right hand. I mean, they use it just as much as they use their hands. And so I think technology is going to play a huge role in development and the maintenance of Indigenous languages, especially when they're geared toward the youth as they are right now. And so I hope that people take the opportunity to realize that, like, kids love playing games on the computer, kids love watching TV. And so I think that maybe, like, having cartoons in the Indigenous languages or having computer games in Indigenous language, just to help, like, even the smaller generations, would really help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with her. Technology is key nowadays, and I know that the Sioux Nation have the Berenstain Bears dubbed in their language, and so that could be useful because it's getting the younger generation more exposed to their language. And also Miramar, the program that we worked with, is a very good program because it allows privacy for the user. So maybe if the tribe doesn't want the language going out into the public, that program is for the private user, and so it won't get out if that's an issue.
Technology is definitely a big part in today, and I feel people need to understand how big it is. I mean, I don't want my generation to be the one to develop this technology, because by then it'll be too late. I'm really worried because if it is my generation that has to develop this technology, I don't know how far along our languages will have degraded. Or, I mean, maybe they will come back, but I think technology is a big part. I mean, I know I use the Miramar software as much as I can. Like, I help my dad out with it. He borrows my computer with the software on it so he can learn it while he's traveling and stuff. And it's just a matter of doing it. We have to make these programs. We have to have this availability. And the more available it is, then the easier it's going to be, which means the less hassle and the more the kids are going to want to play with it. So I feel like just technology is going to be one of the ways to help language revitalize itself.
I'd like to ask the audience to, if they have any comments or questions they'd like to direct at these young people. They're very well prepared, and they're making the best of their opportunities. What do you think about what they're doing, or have questions about what they're doing?